My heart started beating really fast, and I took out my iPhone and I took a picture of the page because I wanted to blow it up on my camera and make sure that I was seeing 12, and in fact I was. And so that was how I discovered that the youngest convict who worked at Clemson was 12 years old. And it was at that moment that everything changed for me, and I realized that the story was far more complicated than I had ever imagined. I think that it is an important part of South Carolina history to understand how convict labor came to be. It is actually an extension of the institution of slavery. After slavery, state legislatures throughout the South, when Reconstruction failed, began looking for new ways to oppress and subjugate African Americans in particular. And so many of the laws that were passed, particularly associated with Jim Crow segregation, targeted African American men in particular, men and boys. And so they became part of the penal system. And if you were a prisoner or a convict, the law actually stated that you were a slave of the state. And so you basically gave up all your rights, and convict labor was a really inexpensive way for the state not only to build educational institutions, but to rebuild itself after the decimation of the Civil War. And there's the human side to the story. You know, how is it that a 12-year-old ends up a felon in the penitentiary with people who have committed murder, with manslaughter, highway robbery, arson, rape? How is it that he ends up on our campus? I also was very interested in finding that there were white convicts as well who were assigned to work for Clemson College. And so all kinds of questions came up. Were they segregated by age, by race, by crime? How did they select the men and boys to come here? How did it affect their sentencing? One of the things that I've discovered that I'm still researching is that it seemed like it reduced their sentences. After they worked at Clemson, they were released early. And I started going through the records and found letters from white citizens and black citizens in support of these men that were sent to the governor. And over again, Governor Tillman granted these pardons. Just knowing that about Ben Tillman, who is presented sometimes as this, rabid racist who every intent of his heart was to subjugate and oppress African Americans. Here's this moment where he takes his responsibility as a governor and he grants pardons to some of the convicts that were working at Clemson College. And so once again, it adds this complicated layer to the story that we miss if we only say convict labor was used to build Clemson University.